Hey everyone, I'm Vivi and welcome! So, about the title of the video, you probably got confused or thought to yourself, why is this even a question? Didn't Rift Apart outright confirm that Rivet and Ratchet are dimensional counterparts? Yes, the game did. Clank outright said the words to Rivet. Rivet even said those words to Kit. Same goes for Insomniac Games out of all things. So case closed, right? Why even break our heads? Well, you see, here's the thing. It appears Rift Apart opened a certain can of worms surrounding the whole dimensional counterparts narrative. Kit and Clank are not who I'm referring to in this case. It's our Lombaxes, Ratchet and Rivet. Upon collecting the Lorbs on Savali, a certain entry of the bunch just causes us to wonder or scratch our heads even. To summarize the Lorbs, a certain Lombax named Mags was tasked to map all dimensions in existence using the Dimensionator. The Council was impressed by the work he did mapping Savali. Caden, that name does sound familiar, doesn't it? Ratchet's father from A Crack in Time? But we'll leave that topic for a future video. Caden, as I was saying, then tells Mags to work faster. We then come to realize working faster meant escaping their dimension.
I found out why Caden has been so stressed lately. Something bad's going on. Bad enough that we need to hide as many Lombaxes as we can, and I guess all of my mapping work was to help find the perfect dimension for us to hide in, so yeah. I hope I didn't screw anything up.
For those unfamiliar with the Future Saga, we believe Entry 11 is referring to the time Tachyon was conquering the Polaris Galaxy. During that time, Tachyon was trying to get rid of all the Lombaxes. He knew the Lombaxes used the Dimensionator to banish his kind to another dimension during the Great War. Pretty much what sparked his hatred in the first place. With that said, our focus lies on Lorb Entry 12. Have a listen.
This is my final recording. If you're listening to this, that means you didn't make it to the new dimension with us, and I'm so sorry. We're trying hard to get everyone now, but our race is scattered across so many dimensions, this is not farewell. I left a copy of my dimensional map in the archives, and I marked down where we're all going. I wish I could have left you a Dimensionator too, but hey, I'm only one Lombax. I hope you find your way back to us, and if you do, please look me up. The name's Mags, and I'd love to hear your story.
Mags stated that whoever is listening to this recording, knowing very well it be a Lombax, then that means they didn't make it to their dimension. Wait a minute. Is probably the first thought that came to your mind, right? Does this mean Rivet was actually... Before we say more, let's keep going. They were trying so hard to get everyone together, stating that their race is scattered across so many dimensions. So wait, Rivet could have been left behind? Perhaps. One important piece of information to note, there was more than one Dimensionator. Mags explained how he wished he could have left one to whoever is listening to these recordings. In this case, a Lombax. After all, only a Lombax can activate these Lorbs from what we've seen on Savali. Azimuth, during our fight in A Crack in Time, did say there were no more Dimensionators.
There are no more Dimensionators!
It's quite fascinating that they stuck with that piece of lore. So if the Lombaxes were using more than one Dimensionator, then we'd like to believe they all escaped in separate groups. Why else would they utilize more than one Dimensionator, right? The whole Lombaxes being scattered across so many dimensions is quite a head-scratcher if you really think about it. The Lombaxes in our dimension fled Tachyon. Tachyon was in our dimension. We don't think he was concerned with alternate Lombaxes. All Tachyon wanted to do was to take over Polaris and get rid of the Lombaxes in our dimension. Why would alternate Lombaxes or dimensional counterparts be involved in this, right? The only way we could make sense out of all this is simply when the Lombaxes tried escaping Tachyon, for some reason some of them got lost. The Dimensionator could have malfunctioned or sent them to the wrong place. That could explain Lombaxes being scattered across so many dimensions. If lucky enough, they'd find their way to Mags's copy of the dimensional map on Savali, marking their exact coordinates. Worst case scenario, you're lost and don't have a Dimensionator. At least that's what Mags was assuming. In that case, one would simply have to figure out how to build another Dimensionator. Mags did hope that they would find their way back to them. So with that being said and done, where does Rivet fit into the equation? Rift Apart clearly portrayed Rivet as our dimensional counterpart. But what if it's not what we're meant to believe in the grand scheme of things? Dimensional counterpart in Rivet's case could simply mean experiencing life differently, growing up under different circumstances, in another dimension of course. In her case, for example, she never got the feeling of close companionship like Clank until she met Kit. As for the others, Phantom, Captain Quantum, Pierre, Kit, these guys could simply be the exception here, as in, they are literal alternate versions of the ones we know. As for Rivet, just because she resides in another dimension doesn't mean she's a literal counterpart. So what I'm getting at here, Rivet potentially could have been left behind. Seeing as how she's never seen another Lombax until she met Ratchet, this could be a case of a far-off memory. Rivet could have wound up in her dimension at a very young age, not remembering how she even got here. Let's compare this to Ratchet's situation. His father sent him to the Solana galaxy to keep him safe from Tachyon's rule. Not a different dimension we're talking about, but the idea here is Ratchet doesn't even remember any of it. Same for Rivet. She wound up in this place as just a child. As for why she was actually left behind, well, that's up to our imagination. Another thing I can't help wrap my head around, and could add weight to this theory, is the simple mere fact that Rivet's the only Lombax in her dimension. In Ratchet's case, there were many Lombaxes. It just so happens they all escaped to another dimension. Yes, Alistair Azimuth was also a Lombax and still present in Ratchet's dimension in Kraken time. In his case, he was outcast after what he did, betraying the Lombaxes and trusting Tachyon with their tech. So Rivet by herself, that almost reinforces the thought of her being left behind or lost, doesn't it? What do you all think about this? Do you feel like the Lorbs are just a whole can of worms, or do you feel like there's more to this story? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. Like always, thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel, and thank you viewers for tuning in, much appreciated. And yeah, I've been Vivi, and until next time.